So most organizations will have two types of data about your stakeholders. They'll be either explicit or implicit. Explicit data is really about information that, maybe donors give you. It could be everything from contact financial information. It could be demographics. A lot of the time it's preferences in terms of how they want to be communicated with you. It might be about their relationship with you. And charities tend to actually store and hold lots of this data. And I think sometimes that also causes us all a lot of problems. So my view is, if we're storing the data and we're prepared to manage the risk that comes with storing that data, we should have a really good reason for having that data, and then a real implicit use for using it. So we talk about implicit data. That's more about information that you can infer. So that's about behavior and context. Might still be anonymous, but you can still draw some conclusions about it. And so implicit data could be everything like Google Analytics through to you summarizing implicit data in terms of what a behavior might be. So it could be about personalization on a page. It could be interaction with an email campaign. It could be any of those things. And implicit data is probably less easy to collect. It's definitely harder to draw conclusions from it. So generally start with explicit data, and then you can move into implicit data, and those two should form a kind of symbiotic relationship in your data strategy. One of the kind of more advanced mechanisms for capturing that kind of implicit data, and can also be implicit as well, is around engagement scoring. So first of all, what is engagement scoring? It's a value that will define how engaged your supporters are. So these could be donors, they could be fundraisers, they could be volunteers, they could be stakeholders, they could be grant issuers, whoever they might be, anyone that you need to understand where your relationship is. Engagement scoring will give you a numerical value that demonstrates where that relationship is. And then with that, you can do something. So it could be a record of every interaction that you have with an individual supporter down to a contact level. And then each of these interactions is given an attribution score. And typically that's by type. So we would say for every email interaction, there's this many points. For attending an event, there's this many points. Actually, making a donation, or for signing up to be a volunteer, or even better, if they're going to do one of the volunteer events and they're going to generate some large donation value for us, we should have a way of demonstrating that their engagement is different and on different types of activities. And then their actions correspond, value accumulate, and that results in an individual engagement score. So over time, more and more interaction, their scores will change. We can do things like decrease scores if they do things that you don't want them to necessarily do, or if they fail to do things that you're hoping them to do. And really, it's important to recognize that it's a guide. It's not a hard and fast, this person is more engaged than that person because they've got a higher score. But it should allow you to draw some deeper conclusions and drill into the data to say, why are they more engaged? What are we doing with that contact that makes them more or less engaged? And then tailor your communications and your approach to change that score, to move the needle into the direction that you need it to go. You should absolutely use engagement scoring when you're prepared to do it. And so that fundamentally is underpinned by having a defined strategy and being able to segment your data. So it's about knowing your data, being able to segment it, and being able to draw conclusions from your data. It'll be great if you start to move your engagement scoring to integrate with your personas. I'm sure any of you who've done some new websites or customer journey mapping work will have recognized the value of personas. And so it'd be great if you could start integrating your personas into your engagement scoring. It's not essential, but it does demonstrate the best value as you move up the kind of value chain. And you have some form of technology to do the scoring. And so for those of you who don't have anything fancy in place, we've got some very basic Excel spreadsheets that you can use to kind of get going. It does require some manual work, and there are better ways of doing it, but we didn't want technology to be a defining, limiting factor for you. When shouldn't you use engagement scoring? Well, fundamentally, if you don't have a strategy. And so, it's fundamental to understand that just having engagement scoring could just be a technical solution, and just having some tech in place will not give you the outcome that you need if you don't have a strategy. If you don't have clearly defined strategic objectives, you're just going to score and you're not going to know the value of the scoring. This is an example that we've extracted actually from work with an existing client. And it's about understanding how data drives retention and recruitment in what they call a kind of virtuous circle. So it starts off with engagement, and that can be an ongoing program around awareness for the services and benefits that you provide. It could be around then moving towards involvement and about how you can track engagement and score and play back that to demonstrate audience involvement and their value. So as the involvement increases, you'll tend to get more advocacy. And so advocacy is where things become viral. People will talk more about it. They might be doing word of mouth. They might be talking about more, especially if they're doing a donation event. And so that's about really getting volunteers to spread the word and to demonstrate their value to other stakeholders, donors through the process. And then the important one is this is where the engagement scoring comes in. And that's really about being able to extract a return on investment and understanding which of your activities are generating the best engagement, not just financial return, but which of those activities are helping you do more. If you improve engagement, the financial return should take care of itself. And then the critical one here is about retention. So minimizing cancellations, that could be cancellations of direct debits, etc., by using the data to play back to you stakeholders and remind them of everything that's happened before and how valuable the relationship is to you, and hopefully the relationship is to them. And then if everything's worked in the virtuous circle, that will self-perpetuate through more recruitment, more engagement, more involvement. And so we find this strategy quite interesting because it allows you to kind of quite systematically figure out where your donors or stakeholders are as they move through the process.